All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Let us begin. So we are picking up this morning in Mishna Yomi, and we are picking up in Berachos Hashem in Berachos, Perek Beis. We will be doing in Berachos Hashem Mishnayos Beis through Gimel. So chapter 2, Mishnayos 2 through 3. Mishnah Beis says as follows. Remember again in yesterday's Mishnah, we discussed the interesting machlokes regarding when one is permitted to go ahead and potentially interrupt, or when one is permitted to speak, when one is permitted to respond. So we spoke about the concept of bein haprakim, in between paragraphs. So the Mishnah says, Eilahin bein haprakim. When we refer to in between paragraphs, here is what we are referring to. Bein bracha rishona l'shniya. We're referring, for example, between brachos. Remember in yesterday's Mishnah we saw there are always two brachos before Shema. In the morning, there's one bracha after Shema, and in the evening, there's two brachos after Shema. So therefore, the Mishnah says as follows. The definition of bein haprakim is in between the first two brachos. In the morning, that means Yotzer HaMa'oros and Avarabba. In the evening, it's Ma'ariv Arovim and Ohev Amo Yisrael. And bein Shniya l'Shema, between the second bracha and Shema. Bein Shema levaya im Shama. Now, interestingly enough, from a Mishnaic perspective, Shema and V'ahavta are reckoned as one unit. So between Shema and Vayahim Shamoa, that's also in between the paragraphs. Bein V'hayahim Shamoa levayomer, and then between Vayahim Shamoa and Vayomer. Ben Vayomer li MS V'yatziv, and then between the last paragraph of Vayomer and MS V'yatziv. So both said this is the definition of bein haprakim, in between the paragraphs. Rabbi Yehuda says, bein Vayomer li MS V'yatziv lo yafsik. So Rabbi Yehuda says that between Vayomer and MS V'yatziv, one should not interrupt. Now, interestingly enough, that's based on the fact that there is a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, and the pasuk says, Hashem Elokeichem MS. And because it says Hashem Elokeichem MS, Hashem your God is MS, is truth, therefore again in Kriyas Shema itself, Rabbi Yehuda says, it is better not to interrupt between Hashem Elokeichem and MS, rather one should say Hashem Elokeichem MS, which again is important for us because even though the Chazan, let's say by Shachris begins again, or even by Amarav begins MS, we're supposed to finish off the phrase Hashem Elokeichem MS. I'm Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. So we'll say, so therefore again, the Mishnah gives me the bein haprakim. The Mishnah now has effectively given me what are the definition of between the paragraphs. Beautiful. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says something very interesting. Lama kadma Shema lebayam Shema. So we'll say, remember again, the three parashas of Shema do not appear consecutively in the Torah. They're placed together by Chazal. Right? So you have Shema and V'ahavta, then you have, again, V'haya'im Shamoa, and then Vayomer. Three different paragraphs that appear in three different places, and yet Chazal placed them together and also created an order. So the Mishnah now discusses the order. So Lama Kadma Shema V'haya'im Shamoa. So why does Shema appear to V'haya'im Shamoa? Elish Yekabel Alav Oma Hushayim Tchila. It's very beautiful. Why are both saying? In order, this is the following: that a person, remember what's Shema? Shema is the acceptance of the yoke of heaven. I accept the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're supposed to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All of this is the relationship aspect with the Ribono Shel Olam. So a relationship, the acceptance of the yoke of heaven, and a commitment to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Relationship comes before, right? He says, K'dei shechab alav omach u'shmaim tchila, va'achar kach yikab alav ol mitzvot. So we'll say, what's Vaya'im Shalom? Haya'im Shalom represents taking upon myself the responsibility of mitzvos. So this is incredible. Before I take upon myself the responsibility of mitzvos, I have to accept upon myself the responsibility of relationship, which is a truly beautiful idea. What the Mishnah is saying is, mitzvos are only meaningful if they take place in the context of a relationship. So Shema and V'ahavta is the establishment of a relationship, and then V'haya'im Shamoa is the acceptance of mitzvos. But mitzvos, again, are only meaningful if preceded by a commitment to relationship. So beautiful. So now I understand Shema v'yahavta and then Vayayim Shamoa. Vayayim Shamoa levayomer. Why does Vayayim Shamoa come before the last paragraph of Shema to Vayomer? Very simply, Shevahayayim Shamoa noheg bayom ubalayla. Vayomer eino noheg ela bayom. Very simple. Because remember again, if working backwards, Vayomer, really the essence of Vayomer is the parsha of tzitzis. The mitzvah of tzitzis only applies by day. V'haya'im shamoa is talking about a general commitment to mitzvos and to Torah learning. Mitzvos and Torah learning apply both by day and by night. Therefore, Chazal, when piecing together Kriya Shema, so put V'haya'im shamoa, which has mitzvos, which apply by day and by night, before Vayomer, which has tzitzis, which only applies by day. So say, if you put this all together, it's so beautiful because you see that there is a real chachma in the structure of Shema. First, I need Shema and v'yahavta. That is what we call Kabbalah's Ol Malchut Shamayim, acceptance of the yoke of heaven, which really means for our purposes, establishment of relationship. The first thing I need is establishment of relationship. After I have relationship, Vaya'im Shamoa, that's mitzvos. Acceptance of mitzvos. Because mitzvos are important or meaningful when performed in the context of a committed relationship. And then Parsha Vayomer, which also talks about a mitzvah, but only the mitzvah of tzitzis, which applies by night, therefore is placed third after the paragraph of Vaya'im Shamoa. Truly beautiful. Mishna Gimel. Hakorei Shema v'lo yishmi la'azno. If a person read Shema, said Shema, but did not say the words loud enough that they could hear what they're saying. See here, essentially, I am enunciating or I'm articulating, but I'm not saying it in an audible tone. What's the halacha? Yatsa. You're Yotzei. You're Yotzei. You still fulfill the mitzvah. Rabbi Yossi Omer, lo Yatsa. Rabbi Yossi says, no, you're not Yotzei. Rabbi Yossi says, in order to be Yotzei Shema, you have to be able to hear what it is that you're saying there. Where does Rabbi Yossi get that from? He gets it from the word Shema, right? Shema, the Gemara says, Hashmiya la'aznecha ma sha'ata motzei mipicha. Allow your ears to hear that which your mouth is saying. How do we paskin Rabosai? We paskin like the Tanakam, like the first opinion, that although it is ideal to say Shema with some level of audibility that you'll be able to hear what you're saying. If you did not, you are still Yotzei. Kara v'lo diktek bosia says, interesting case. What happens if you read Shema, you said Shema, but you were not careful with the articulation of the words? Also, here's what's interesting about Shema. Shema has a number of words where the last letter of the first word and the first letter of the second word are the same. For example, Alevavcha. Alevavcha. So Alevavcha on your heart. So if you say that quickly, what does it sound like? Alevavcha. So I will say, essentially, if you say it quickly, you could blend the two lamids into one, right? You create a lamed blur, right? That's what's called loditik bos yosei. You weren't careful with the articulation of the words. Rabbi Yossi yatsa. Rabbi Yossi says you're still yotzei. Rabbi Huda omer lo yatsa. Rabbi Huda says no. If you're not careful with the articulation of the word, you're not yotzei. Rabbi Yossi, how do we paskin? We pass like Rabbi Yossi. That although it is ideal to, of course, articulate the words, if you did not fully articulate them, you are still yotzei. Akar lemafreya lo yatsa. If one reads Shema out of order, now I will say out of order in this context literally means you're reading the verses out of order, not the paragraphs. Technically speaking, if you read the paragraphs out of order, you would still be Yotzei. This is a situation where you're quite literally reading, for some reason, you're reading the psukim, the verses themselves out of order, you're not Yotzei. Kara v'ta'ah, what if you made a mistake in Shema? You made a mistake in what you're reading. What's the halacha? Yachzor lemakom sheta'ah. So also here's what's interesting. One might have thought that if you make a mistake in Kriyas Shema, when you make a mistake, you have to go back to the beginning of the paragraph in which you made a mistake. Kamash Shmala, no. When you make a mistake in Shema, you just have to go back to the exact spot that you made a mistake and begin again from there. Shkayach, we'll stop over here for today. Another incredible day of Mishna. So we'll continue with Mishna Dalit and Hey tomorrow. Shkayach.